Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. We're going to be going over next gen SEO, pretty much how you can dominate in 2025 and all the things that you need to change. So let's dive right in. My name is Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. And today with us, we have Scott and Rob. Scott, do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself, and then Rob, go for it next?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Zimmerman. I'm our Associate Director of Technical SEO at NP Digital and oversee the tech success for our global clients.
And my name is Rob Tandula. I am the Director of SEO here at NP Digital. I oversee all of our SEO clients and have fun on webinars and doing thought leadership things like this, and excited to talk with you all today.
I'm like, is it me or were the images switched of you two underneath your name? I could be wrong. I'm like, wait, I'm confused here. All right. So we're at NP Digital. We're a global ad agency. If you ever want to work with us, you can scan the QR code right there and it'll lead you to our website. We offer all the services out there that one could think about: SEO, paid media, email, CRO, social, the list goes on and on. We have quite a bit of tools. We're over 1,000 people. We've won tons of awards, have a lot of clients. In other words, we've produced a lot of amazing results for the companies we work with. So what is search in 2025? Most people look at search as, hey, it's a Google game. We did an interesting study in which we looked at how many searches are on each and every single platform out there. The one platform that's not in this study here is ChatGPT. The last time I looked up their numbers, it's around 1 billion a day. So if you include that, there would be around 46.1, but in this chart is 45.1 billion. And based on the chart data, Google has 18.8%. If you add in ChatGPT, Google's still roughly at 18%. But it's just 18% of searches. Like when people are like, oh yeah, everyone searches on Google. No, they're searching roughly 1 out of every 5 times on Google. They're searching 4 out of every 5 times on other platforms. Like Amazon has 3.5 billion searches a day. Instagram has 6.5 billion. And people on Instagram are searching for friends, content type, right? Now, the type of searches people performing on different platforms varies. Like on Amazon, people are looking for a product to buy. But it just gives you an idea that you need to optimize for all platforms that can sell your products and services versus just Google. And if you think SEO is not really worth investing in anymore, we looked at sites that were new websites, less than 3 years old, websites that were established, and we looked at the return on SEO over time for new websites versus established. Established websites see a pretty quick return. New websites do see amazing returns. It just takes a little bit longer. People turn to Google because of search, right? Whether it's for brands, which is roughly 31.27% of searches, which is kind of crazy to think about. And, it's a lot of generic searches, as well as brand. If you look at the top 10 queries and it comes out each year, the last time I checked, I haven't checked out the 2024 data. I believe on the 2023 data, or was it 2022? Either one of those years, I believe like 7 of the top 10 queries were for brands. And they also search for informational and navigational. Those also make up big chunks. All this data really does help you determine what kind of content you should create to maximize the traffic you can get to your website. People also turn to other channels for search, like social media. You can search for a friend. You can search for a content type. People also turn to AI chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, just wanting quick answers. Google is also integrating some of these features in, but there's other platforms people use, and search is turning into a game of what we see with social media. The average person uses over 6 platforms per month. Think about that for a minute. People talk about Facebook being dead. People still use it. I believe Meta makes roughly the same amount of money from Facebook as they do from Instagram, the last I checked. Technically, the last I checked, it was actually Facebook generating more revenue, but it's getting neck and neck, where Instagram may overtake Facebook soon. But it just goes to show that people use a lot of platforms. Even if you ask most people, they're like, oh, I don't use Facebook. Well, the revenue data shows that people still do use it. In other words, search is multimodal. 90% of consumers use multiple devices to complete a single task, such as doing a research or purchasing a product or even figure out which service provider to use. Not just looking up reviews, but also doing things like seeing what other companies have that alternative, or figuring out, all right, do they actually, are they doing, or are they solving their problem the correct way, or is there another solution that's more efficient or faster? And here's an example of how search works in today's world. So someone goes to a conference, they see someone writing notes, but on a digital device. They take a picture. Google has something called Lens. You then take your phone, Google shows you, hey, this is remarkable. This is a notebook that allows you to write. Then you go to their website, sign up for their newsletter, look at reviews on Reddit, maybe check them out on Amazon and other main, platforms and sites that sell the product. You get an email announcement then from Remarkable because you choose not to buy, and like, hey, we got a deal. You then were like, all right, let me go check in person at Best Buy. You go drive there, and you're like, all right, I like actually using it, test out the product. Then you go home, and then you complete your purchase online because you found that cheaper deal because they were running a 30% promotion and Best Buy didn't have that. That's an example of a journey. And it is people using multiple channels, multiple devices, and that is how they're buying in today's world. So that means for your SEO strategy, you got to look at a lot of channels, a lot of devices, and you got to think not just, hey, people are typing. Some people search through Google Lens, which is visual. Some people search through voice. If you have young kids, you will find that the younger generation has learned to search through voice before they even learn to type. So for the future generations, you're going to see voice search being the main way they search because that's how they were taught, while we were taught to do it through text first. And SEO still plays a crucial role in customer acquisition. Look at the study that we did on window shoppers versus buyers. And when you look at quality visitors, SEO still does extremely well. So does paid ads, and so does direct traffic, right? But don't take it for granted. It's a channel that's harder, but it's a channel that has a much higher ROI from what we've seen. And when we talk about search everywhere optimization as a new SEO, it's because of this study. We surveyed 5,343 people in 2020, and most of them use search engines like Google to do their searches. In 2024, we surveyed 11,105 people, and they're using search engines like Google and Bing. They're also using social media and AI chatbots. You'll notice that the percentage adds up to more than 100%, and it's because people can use more than one channel to perform a search. It just shows that you got to optimize for all these channels. And the new channels will start dominating 2025 that a lot of people haven't focused on yet, like social shopping. And you bet they're going to start integrating things like search. ChatGPT is already doing that. It's pretty much search driven. Podcasting, Google actually indexes podcasts within their search engine. Organic social search is really huge. If someone types in purses, why doesn't Louis Vuitton or Chanel show up, right? Even if it's brand awareness, it's all really important to drive the most ROI. And Google SERP is also focusing on diversifying their content. You're seeing videos and images really boom. You're seeing the AI responses really boom as well. And in Google, there's tabs for different video types as well. When you also think about zero clicks, yes, zero clicks have been increasing over time, but Danny Sullivan from Google released a statement saying Google has driven more clicks to websites each and every single year from its existence. And he's talking about organic clicks, and we've seen that true in our data as well. So clicks aren't everything. I want you to start thinking about SEO as really full funnel marketing, and it can also be used heavily for brand awareness, and we're seeing it provide really effective results. The new opportunities you also need to think about are long form videos, short form videos, and also optimizing images. You can't see it in the screenshot on the right side, but if you do a Google search, you'll see a tab for short form videos and long form videos. That's how popular different video formats are for them to be willing to create multiple tabs for long form versus short form. So now let's dive in on how you can dominate search in 2025.
Awesome. I'm going to take it from here and walk you all through some things that may already be sort of table stakes in SEO, but also some new concepts that we think are going to be important this year. And the first being really focusing on the fundamentals. I think we hear this a lot, but when it comes down to it, you want to remove anything that is going to decelerate your progress. So, site speed related issues, any crawling issues, any redirects that may not be working, and most importantly, I think trimming the fat when it comes to both the technical debt and the content that's on the site. It's always good to keep a focus on these fundamentals there. You want to highlight your experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And one of the ways you can do that, or several ways, is collaborating with industry leaders, actually acquiring links that are from quality websites because you've deserved it, looking for ways to increase the amount of times your brand is mentioned in different communities. And then with that, you need to be updating your content as a byproduct to keep things fresh. Looking at the depth of content is quite important. And I think what sticks out here is the second point, where you want to aim to create the most informative resource on the web on a given topic. And I think if you ask yourself if you've done that or not, it really should serve as a basis for if you need that piece of content to begin with. There are a lot of different ways to discuss factual information, but having your own unique details and insights are what's going to set that apart in the coming years. Building a brand is one, difficult, but it's also very important for long-term success. So the way that you're able to sort of build a community around whether a personal or a business brand, sharing your insights and valuable opinions and thought leadership opportunities gives your brand a chance to get more credibility in front of the eyes of others who are searching for similar concepts. And so there are a lot of ways you can do that, multimedia content, and we'll discuss some of the tactics there, but having an authoritative brand is a foundation you can rest on in order to build the rest of the marketing channels up. The organization of content is key. I think, historically in SEO, we pursue these keyword themes and sort of exhaust them to death. But when you look at the structure of the underlying concepts, so in this, we have a guide to email marketing. Each one of those sub pieces really are what the user is looking for to ladder up to the ultimate guide. So you have to think about what are the individual needs, pain points, and what is the information that someone needs in order to master this concept. And then by clearly grouping those together, you give them an opportunity to understand this from the top down. Adding more structure to any page content, whether it be FAQs or more user generated, which we'll get into in a few slides here, provides more information, one, for crawlers and different LLMs to pick up, but two, shows that you have an active audience and you're engaging and answering their questions. So consider adding some of these components within the copy and also sourcing those answers and questions from your own users to begin with. If you do that correctly, then typically what we can see is that those questions, if a user has them in search, could surface your responses via that page in the search results directly, which is positive for the brand. Schema goes without saying for a lot of cases, but we're not just thinking about Google anymore, and other systems and other platforms use structured data to help understand content as well. Some maybe even to a more extensive in a more extensive nature than Google, given Google's algorithms are quite advanced. So leveraging things like the knowledge panel, making sure your person, place, and organization schema is in place, and then in some instances implementing same as to help establish those connections between different concepts that search engines will try and understand. We like to go where Google favors things, but of course, only when it's justified for the user. In this case, you want to cozy up with a few of these tactics that tend to get rewarded in search more than others, and related to consumer guides, having corresponding YouTube videos, and then social forums like Reddit and Quora, where the community actively engages around a brand, and then there's an opportunity there to essentially have your voice heard while not being commercial, because on a community like Reddit, for example, that can go south very quickly. You want to create truly new content, and factual information is a bit of a thing of a past in terms of getting rankings and clicks. You may be able to generate impressions for this type of information nowadays, but as far as the bottom of the funnel, we're going to lose a lot at the top here. Um, this example is, are bananas nutritious? I think it's a very rudimentary one in the sense that we will see AI overviews start to answer more and more complex questions with certainty over time. And so you should be thinking about your content in that sense and what is future proofed, what can't be explained in a couple of sentences, and try and build a strategy around that. You want to identify trends and really jump on them before they become the talk of the town. And so, a lot of times in SEO, we're looking at third party volume tools, and those are going to take some time in order to record trends that are emerging on different platforms. And 15% of the searches on a daily basis have never been searched before. And so that's obviously an opportunity for marketers, but it's also an opportunity for us to even create some predictive content around things we think are going to become more popular after we hear a buzz on social media before we actually see that data reflected in a third party tool suggesting the search volume. So important to focus on keywords, of course, but if you see trends that are starting to bud on social media, you can capitalize on those without really having the SEO data to back it up right out of the gate. Local SEO continues to be just a massive deal for all businesses, in my opinion, with a local presence. Brands are losing around $54 billion a year by just ignoring local SEO to begin with. Oftentimes, just on a personal level, you see a business, you're trying to search for it. And as an SEO, you see their profile's not claimed, the knowledge panel's not there, and you think they're missing out on a lot of business here because they could be engaging consumers that are specifically looking for the brand, but their local configuration doesn't really allow them to show up. So we find that brands with higher visibility index tend to see a much higher revenue growth year over year. And again, people will always search for brick and mortar locations. It's the nature of how we operate in the world. And so don't ignore this if your business has a local component. As Neil alluded to earlier, voice and conversational searches are going to continue to be, a focus in coming years. And I think the conversational component is the bigger one here. There will certainly be users that are a younger generation that are innately, catered towards the voice experience. But the way LLMs, I think, are changing how people search and the nature of the follow-ups that they're asking and the context they're providing. So start to think about what are those conversations that are happening and how could we accomplish this with content to serve what the user is actually looking for. And if you can actually think just a step beyond that and go sort of above and beyond what the standard conversation would be, that gets back to what we're talking about creating truly unique information for the user online. Visual search, especially if you're in e-commerce and have products to sell, is going to be massive in our opinion. So I use Google Lens all the time looking for products that I haven't quite discovered yet, and we see that visual search is expected to grow around 17.4%, over the next 8 years or so. So what do you do in order to actually capitalize on this? Well, you want to use custom imagery, you want to custom metadata, and you want to make sure that you're ahead and have all of the markup in place before your other competitors do. So even if you think about the nature of the SERP and how in certain e-commerce scenarios it has literally become a pure shopping experience, you need to be thinking about how your products are visually represented within the results.
And just think about it. Google Lens is used 10 billion times a month, right? Like, that's a lot of searches that people take for granted. I know it's not crazy popular yet compared to traditional Google search, but it's growing at a very rapid pace.
Very true. And to Neil's point, now that they've really integrated it in, you can right click, search with Google Lens. It's only going to promote usage as it's innately featured in Chrome.
Yes, and as it gets better too, right? Because when you search on Google Lens, it'll end up showing you other similar products. But imagine when people need a problem solved and it actually solves your problem because you can just do a visual search and talk into it at the same time and show what's broken. It teaches you how to fix it. Like when it starts getting more advanced like that, and I know Google's shown clips of that in the past, it's just we haven't seen it come to fruition really. But when that kind of stuff comes to reality, you won't see 10 billion searches a month. You'll see hundreds of billions of searches a month.
Yep, absolutely. So you want to be prime position to take advantage of this as the trend continues. All right. So you want to also find ways to combine both the intent and traffic, and this is a balance that we always try and strike. The high traffic stuff is still very important. In this example, accounting software. But if we break that down into what is somebody actually looking for, you can start to see that the best accounting software for general contractors, while that might represent a much smaller volume of 210 searches, if you were able to convert 30% more visitors off of that volume versus getting more traffic to your business, which one is going to matter more? So it's important to consider the niche topics and the nuanced queries in addition to your top level terms that you're really trying to go after. And we find that for businesses that aren't the number one player in their space, going after some of the more secondary terms that you can actually win on ends up being more fruitful from a business perspective. And reviews will, I think, above all else, the trust signals and the way that you engage your community going forward is going to matter significantly beyond Google as well. So we look at reviews, it's an important component of our SEO campaigns, and we had 3 review related algorithm updates in 2023. You can look at the traffic for pages with reviews, and on average, you can see how this scales up. So, with 201 reviews or more, you're seeing an average of over 700 visits, where with 10 reviews or less, you see less than 200. And that actually makes sense when you think about your own search behavior online. If you see the markup in the results where you have the stars under the results, you click through, you're able to consume those reviews and make a better purchase decision. Whereas some brands that don't feature them leave the consumer wondering, has anyone had a bad experience with this, and maybe reluctant to stick around. Creating a great user experience is always something that's been important, but I think some of the leaks earlier this year highlighted these systems and engagement as truly actually being part of some of the core algorithms. Previously, Google's like to deny this, but when we look at the user experience, it's beyond just page speed and the mobile experience. It's really how long are people staying? What are they actually doing when they're on the site? And when we think about experience, it goes beyond just the first consumption of content above the fold. It's the entire thing. So we keep that at the forefront. Digital public relations is one of the key ways that we can make sure our brand's being highlighted in the right places and with the right conversations. So it helps boost brand recognition. You can engage different journalists, bloggers, and influencers, especially nowadays, in order to promote your messaging and get it to the right people. And encouraging positive brand mentions through reviews and comments, even in forums, to enhance the AI's perception of your content quality is something that we're starting to experiment with as well. And in general, where there is an active community discussing things related to your business, we believe it's important to participate and to engage those customers, whether it be through outreach, reviews, or simply just conversation. Attracting natural links is something I think a lot of content production struggles to do because of the fact that it's not truly unique. So when you add proprietary studies and data, infographics and videos, it adds a ton of value to the page and makes it more shareable. But you can't just add any proprietary data and just sort of throw it out of thin air. It has to exist within some sort of context that the consumer gets. In the example on the right, how marketers are spending their money in 2025, we validate right out in the headline that this is a statistically significant with 11 over 11,000 marketers surveyed. For us, this is obviously something that we do consistently, and having proprietary studies and being able to put your own lens on industry data is important to attracting customers to your brand. Because if you offer a different perspective and it resonates with them, you can reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, and if you look at our business, I post on social media and the company does. I post roughly twice a day. One of them is usually stats and data and graphs. And it's been going well for us. Doesn't necessarily get as much engagement as, let's say, a short form video, but we're seeing it drive better leads in the long run. And it's hard to track, of course, but when we talk to people, a lot of them are like, oh, cool. Love the data that you put out there. Want to work with a data driven firm that can look at what's wrong and figure out what to do based on data versus someone's gut.
Yeah, that last point is really important, right? Like, if you're able to tell the audience, we studied this and here's the data to support the claims that we're making, it's far more valuable than just saying, here's what we noticed and these are the claims. So, great point. Couple of last ones here. So, encouraging user generated content, I think, is something brands maybe have shied away from in the past because it can be difficult to control if there is negative and/or positive sentiment. But when you encourage users to come to the website, leave their experience, and actually provide a sort of a real take on what it like to either use a product or engage with the brand, it shows that there's an active community and you're actually listening to your users. And this matters to humans, obviously, but when LLMs and crawlers scour the web, they're looking for these context signals to see, okay, how active is this brand in engaging with their customers versus the other, because they will consider that in their question and their data. So it's important to keep this in mind. We think it's a good thing to let everybody sort of share their opinion and quell it back from there. And then it in turn can allow you to use these in different content formats, like these quotes that we have listed on the right-hand side. All right, rounding it out here, I think there's no question that you can't afford to ignore Bing anymore. Obviously, Google has a massive dominant market share, but it's dropped a few points year over year into 2024, especially in the US on desktop searches. So as the OpenAI integration with Bing continues to roll out, there's Apple AI, there's Copilot builds here. You can't afford to ignore all of the other engines that are potentially driving traffic. And to Neil's point earlier, there are billions of searches happening across other search engines. And how we capitalize on that outside of Google is really where some of these tactics are going to come into play. And Rob will actually walk you through a few of those as well.
And really quick, you got to look at how they're also commingled too for your own internal purposes. So, for example, Bing powers a lot of Chat GPT search, right? Or Search GPT, whatever you want to end up calling it. And when you look at, Chat GPT, you can bet you that Copilot is just a variation or version of it. Apple AI, from my understanding, they're using a lot of Chat GPT, or it is powering it. And I believe they have a sweetheart deal where Apple doesn't even have to pay for OpenAI to power it for them because Apple has so many users.
I believe so. And yeah, so to Neil's point, these, I think we'll see a lot of other integrations as well. GPT may power other search platforms and other tools as well. And Google may exist sort of in its own microcosm as the organic algorithm sort of juggernaut. But
But
anytime you see a market share loss of, over 3 points for someone like Google, something is happening. And it's interesting to see that most of this is isolated to desktop, not mobile as well. So just some interesting stats for the group.
and just think about this, right? Bing gets you so when you optimize for Bing, that means it also helps you with Chat GPT, right? It also helps you with Apple AI. I'm assuming one day they put it on a computer. Maybe they already have. I haven't seen it yet, but I have seen it on a mobile phone. But yeah, so optimizing for one platform like Bing, when you think they have a much smaller market share, can actually get you in multiple places and get you way more visibility than what you see on the surface level, because Bing's true market share is much deeper than what's being reported due to their integrations in other platforms like ChatGPT.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to round this out, I think the ranking factors across the two are very similar. But one thing Google doesn't have is this massive partnership, obviously, with OpenAI and the way that that directly integrates into GPT in addition to search. So whereas Google, it is just the search UI. You're not going to necessarily get GPT results powered by Google search. So understanding where they're embedded, the fundamentals still work for each of the platforms. There's no real difference in terms of what you should be focusing on as far as foundational elements. But I think on the Bing side of things, the social, the engagement metrics that are really more public in terms of how they consider them are things that are not going to be ignored. And that dovetails into what we were alluding to with LLMs and engaging with your users. How's it doing on social? What are the external factors that are influencing user experience that can be considered? I think we'll start to see more advancement out of that from the OpenAI camp alongside Bing and Microsoft. Awesome. Now we're going to get into generative engine optimization, and I'm going to hand it over to Rob to talk about if we think this is a new form of SEO.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And this is one of the biggest questions that we get from all clients that come to us. How do we optimize for AI? What should we be doing? And the answer that we give them is the same that you see here, is that GEO, or generative engine optimization, is very, very similar to SEO. It leverages a lot of the same tactics that SEO does. And there's a lot of crossover. And this doesn't apply to just one type of generative engine, right? This is for AI overviews. This is for Search GPT. This is for Microsoft Copilot. This is for Perplexity. And what we'll talk about in some of the following slides are ways that you can make sure that you're optimizing for AI, which again is very similar to SEO. And you can take that directly from the horse's mouth, right? Even Google says this. If you look on their support section of their website, there's nothing special for creators to do to be considered for AI overviews other than to follow regular guidance for appearing in search as covered by Google Search Essentials. So Google is telling us directly there's nothing special you have to do. You just have to do what you would normally do in SEO to appear in all of these AI search engines.
And a quick note, we actually saw this because when Google rolled out AI overviews, we looked at our client data from a week prior the rollout to a week post the rollout on our SMB division because we had more client quantity, and we looked at US specific data. We saw a little bit more than a 1% increase in clicks because of the AI overviews, right? And then from there, of course, we started optimizing more and more. But a lot of our customers overall got included in AI overviews and it helped them with traffic. A lot of people said, oh, this is just going to kill traditional SEO. It doesn't. It's just another area to get placement, just like a knowledge graph.
Absolutely. And you want to start thinking of search, if you haven't already, in terms of intent, kind of like Scott had said in the earlier section, right? Yes, you still want to pay attention to keywords, but it's not as important as it used to be, right? In the old school days of SEO, you could stuff keywords and you could rank for things. Now we want to think of what is the intent behind the query? What is the SERP telling us? What is the AI overview pulling in as results? And what information is it giving? So think of it through that lens. And I think that you'll see a lot more success in future proofing your strategy rather than focusing just on keywords alone. And you can use AI to help understand your content and formatting. And I think the main takeaway that you want to get from here is that you want to be concise and well structured, right? You want to summarize key takeaways. You want to use nice structure with headings and subheadings, use bullet points and lists, be concise, and then also structure your content so search engines and AI can understand it, right? Using schema markup like Scott talked about, using FAQs and how-tos without your content, using, image objects, using review, aggregate ratings, and testimonials, right? So be concise, be structured well, both for users and for search engines. That's the path forward. And again, you'll see some of our Search GPT optimization hacks follow exactly what we talked about on the previous slide, right? Providing summary key points, make sure you're mentioning your brand and reviews, optimizing for long tail keywords and being conversational, following technical SEO best practices like site speed and schema, using intent and relevance, maybe more so than keywords, and making sure that you're refreshing your content that's in depth, that has high EEAT. A lot of times, we'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, refreshing your content can pay a lot bigger dividends than producing net new content. And as the nice little Neil chatbot at the bottom says, this isn't very different than traditional SEO, is it? Right? So a lot of the same crossover between AI optimizations and SEO. And obviously, content quality is going to be super important. It's the cornerstone of current SEO strategies, and it's going to be the cornerstone of your strategies moving forward. So that begs the question, what type of content should you be creating? You want to make sure that you're investing in blog posts, absolutely, but also tools like calculators and things like that, products and service pages, and obviously your homepage as well. It's going to be a lot of branded traffic, but brands are kind of the way forward in this new era of search. So start thinking of all the different pages on your website. what their purposes are, what their conversion rates are, what the keywords they should be going after, and make sure that you're optimizing them to fit your goals. And knowing your audience is absolutely crucial, right? As you can see on the graph on the right, different age groups interact with content differently, right? The way that baby boomers versus Gen X versus millennials interact with different content and platforms are totally different, right? You might be extremely successful on podcasts for one, type of age group. You might be extremely successful on blog posts or other type of content for other age groups. So understanding your audience is crucial in today's SEO, and it's only going to be more important going forward because you'll know where to invest your time and money in terms of your audience and where they consume their content the most. We always like to talk about this in all of our presentations in terms of resisting the AI temptation, right? Our studies show that people prefer human content over AI-generated clutter. We like to think of AI as a tool, right? It's not the finished product. It definitely needs a human touch. So it can get you part of the way there. It's great for generating outlines and giving you thoughts. But if you really want people to digest and respect your content, it needs to be infused with that human touch and that human element. Again, you want to think about creating user-centric content, right? So like I was talking about before, use AI tools to help you, right? To help you understand who your customers are, to help you understand, what your content should be. But then you want to create that personalized content that delivers high value to different audience segments, just like we talked about in the previous slide. So leveraging those audience insights, understanding who your audience are, understanding their behaviors, their intents, and their desires, as well as their location and search history is going to be very critical going forward in terms of crafting the right message for the right people in the right places. Like we talked about here too, you want to infuse your content with authority. Think about the first E in EEAT, that experience element. That's one thing that chatbots and AI can't do, right? It can't tell you about the vacation that it took in the Bahamas, right? It can't tell you about the product that it used, right? People need to infuse that. So right in the first person, include your own experience, add subject matter expertise, right? These are all the things that AI can't do. Again, you can leverage it and make sure that, it's helping you get on the right path. But again, focus on that first E of the EEAT, and that's going to really create those personalized experiences that users enjoy and want to see. Something else that I've seen kind of crop up in the chat and has been a hot topic in SEO is, how long should content be? And in the early days of SEO, it was like, okay, you could write a 2,000 word article and that would, rank for whatever your topic was. Now you want to think of brevity and clarity, right? Between 2000 and 2015, human attention span shrank by a whopping 25%. This is more prevalent in younger generations than it is in older generations. And we've seen in terms of rankings that you don't have to write 2,000 words anymore to rank. You can write succinct information. You can write a 500-word article, and as long as that information is structured right and it provides the answer clear and concisely, you can still rank and search. And again, this mirrors exactly the trends that we're seeing in terms of attention spans and how humans want to consume information.
And Microsoft Canada did a study, and they found that the humans actually have a shorter attention span than goldfishes now.
Not surprised.
Yeah, you can thank TikTok for that one.
That was my next comment.
And this is exactly what we were just talking about on the previous slide, right? Value doesn't require volume. If you can answer the question succinctly and provide users the information that they want to know, it doesn't have to be 2,000 words, right? And you can see the average word count for all content that we analyzed in each industry, right? It's not very long, and that's okay. You can see that some of these are under 500 words. It doesn't mean you shouldn't write long form content. I don't want that to be the main takeaway. There are certain subjects and topics that do deserve a deep dive and do deserve a lot of those, long form pieces and words, but it doesn't have to be the end all and be all. And again, thinking of your users' attention spans, you want to make sure that you're crafting content that is going to align with the way they consume information.
Yeah, a classic example here is recipe content, where if you're searching for a recipe, there's about a 2,000 word article on top of the actual recipe in order to get to it. That's an instance where adding more content is actually not helping you, and the user's probably going to bounce because it's not giving them what they need quickly.
And don't always think about content as text. Like if someone wanted to Google how to tie a tie, they want to see a video or animated GIF on how to tie a tie. They don't want to read text on how to tie a tie.
Great point.
Exactly. And this is a metaphor that I use all the time. You want to think of your website like a race car, right? Race cars don't have a ton of fluff. They don't have a bunch of weight weighing it down. A lot of content that exists on websites just isn't helpful, right? It's fluffy, it's duplicative, it doesn't target any keywords, it doesn't serve any user intent. And sometimes less can be more. This is especially prevalent in the e-commerce space. You can have tons of pages with parameters and products with colors and all these different things that users aren't searching for. And all it's doing is weighing down your site. And Google's helpful content updates and a lot of the subsequent algorithm updates that they've created recently are targeting exactly that, right? Don't write content for the sake of writing content. Make sure that your website is streamlined, cut out the fluff, and write content and have pages on your website that actually matter and that users are searching for.
Yeah, along the same lines, I think writing content that's not necessarily related to your business can hurt you here, especially if you're in sort of a regulated space or your money in your life. That can hamper the entire website if you're writing about topics that you really shouldn't or don't have the credibility to do so. So that's important to keep in mind as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Keep your eyes on the prize, write stuff that's relevant for you and your business. I alluded to this a little bit earlier in the conversation, but people tend to spend more time creating new content than maintaining it and updating it. And you want to look at your most successful blog posts and make sure that you are refreshing it over time, right? That you're updating, if you have an article that's the best whatever of 2023, go back and update it for 2025. There's so much value in going back and updating and repurposing old blog posts. And it can actually lead to more and steeper traffic increases than creating net new content does at times. And this is exactly what this graph kind of shows here, right? We worked with 846 marketers who received at least 10,000 monthly organic visitors to their site. And we saw that, the largest growth can be seen by refreshing content. It doesn't mean don't write net new content, but if you're writing stuff that's duplicative, or you already have content on your site, or again, you're writing content for the sake of content, you can spend more time doing that when all the value is going back and refreshing the content that is proven to be performing. It can future-proof losses down the road. And you can see based on the graph here that a lot of the largest growths that you see do come from refreshing content, not necessarily producing stuff that's net new. And this is exactly what this slide is trying to say here, right? The 80-20 rule. The top 20% of your articles probably drive 80% of your conversions, probably drives 80% of your traffic. Make sure you're updating those first. Anyone who works in SEO, you're digging through your analytics, you're digging through your search console, you know that the lion's share of your traffic doesn't come from all of your articles. It probably comes, again, from this top 20%. So focus on that, focus on updating those. Even if it hasn't dropped in searches at all, you want to make sure that refreshes are a regular part of your SEO cleanliness. Because if you don't touch them for 2 years, over time, they eventually will drop and you will see those traffic losses. And if those are from your most popular articles, that's going to really hit you in your bottom line where you don't want to be hit. If you are creating new content, you want to make sure that you're creating unique content, right? Especially now that on the internet, you've had websites that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years. A lot of the topics are already covered, right? To some of the earlier points in this slideshow, you're not going to outrank the WebMDs of the world. You're going to have to write content that's truly unique, that targets keywords that are maybe trending, that don't even have search volume, and that match the intent that users have because they're searching for it, whether you're seeing those trends on TikTok or YouTube or other search platforms. So not to say you want to write content that doesn't target keywords, but it isn't the end all and be all. And again, you want to make sure that you're writing unique content and stuff that isn't internally cannibalizing content that you already have. You want to refresh that old content instead. And you also want to keep an eye on social media trends. This is exactly what I was talking about on the previous slide. You may not see search volume on Google yet for certain things that are trending. You may see, the example that you see here, quiet luxury crossbody bags for a brand like Tory Burch, right? It might not have a ton of search volume on Google, but you can see on Reddit that people are searching for it. You can see on TikTok that people are searching for it. And then you go over to Google Trends and, 6 months down the line, then that you see the search volume there. You want to be ahead of the curve. You want to be ahead of the trends and make sure that you're keeping an eye on social media and using that as an inspiration for creating new content or pages on your website to get there before users are searching for it. And you also want to make sure that you're leveraging audience insights, right? Like we said, even if there isn't search volume, people may be interested. One of my favorite hacks is looking at places like Reddit or Quora. And if you see that that is ranking in position 1 or 2 for a search query, that means there's opportunity for you on your own website to write a page or a guide or something that targets that exact query because you know people are searching for it. And if it ranks highly, that means that there's interest, right? So that's going to apply to LinkedIn, Facebook, other keyword research tool. Obviously, you can use ours, Answer the Public, but make sure that you're leveraging audience insights and kind of look at these other platforms and see if there's opportunity for you to create that same content on your own website where you know there's interest and demand already.
The real key to SEO success in 2025 is a few things, and we already discussed some of these things, but A, you got to be everywhere. That's why we call it search everywhere optimization. Your content really matters. It's not just about cranking out tons of content. You got to update, maintain your content. You got to talk about new stuff that people haven't seen before. You got to use stats and data to try to build the backlinks. And when you build backlinks, you don't want it from any junk site. You want to actually get it from websites that have traffic and the pages linking to you have traffic, so that way people click on the links, because we've all seen from the Google leak of their 2,500 documents that they look at even how many people click on the links, right? Because they have all this Chrome data. And you want to make sure that you engage and monitor trends, like whether it's turmeric face mask that really trended on TikTok and Instagram, and then people started searching for it and started buying products, or the quiet luxury that Rob talked about, right? And if I had to add in one more thing to really, really do well, is build a brand. A big part of Google's algorithm these days is brands. Brands are crushing it in rankings. If you look, we showcased a stat earlier, over 30% of the search queries are brand related. You gotta have a brand to do well. Now, your brand doesn't have to be big like Amazon or Nike or Netflix or anything like that, but you need to have a brand, whatever vertical you're in. And as long as your brand is trending up and to the right and growing, it sends the right signals to really boost your rankings. So if you need help implementing any of these strategies that we discussed today, take out your phone, scan the QR code, and you can book a call with our team. Or you can just go to npdigital.com. We can help you with SEO in 2025 and beyond. We already know a lot of the new tactics and strategies. We've been implementing this stuff last year and the year before, and we've been seeing really great results. Hence, we've been winning tons of awards like Agency of the Year. We just won an award from Google for our work in paid advertising as well. I forgot what it was called. Like, let's see what it was. But and we won pretty much over. It was Google recognizes NP Digital for its media unification strategy at 24 Agency Excellence Awards. In other words, we're even winning awards for the unique paid media strategies that we're running, even though we didn't really talk about that in our presentation. So now let's dive into some questions. All right. Colin, what do we have?
We've got a lot. We've got a lot of good ones. First webinar of 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. Some pretty complex questions and some pretty fundamental ones. So Neil, can you explain more about what direct traffic is? We've talked a lot about search traffic and social. Explain to the audience the difference between search traffic and direct traffic. And is there any sort of way to dive into direct traffic data to glean any valuable insights? That question came up twice.
Top of funnel is what really helps direct traffic. It's people recognize your brand and they go directly to a website. That is a large chunk of your direct traffic. People may also be coming from other platforms and the links aren't trackable. That can be considered direct traffic as well. And it's how you also want to define it. in your analytics, this will show up as SEO traffic or paid traffic, but someone could Google your brand name like Amazon, which is one of the most popular search queries. They could count that as paid or SEO, depending if they click on the paid link or SEO. But I personally look at that as direct traffic.
Yeah. Bookmarks and all sorts of ways that people
Bookmarks,
get
yeah.
directly. Yeah, people still use those, I think. So, Neil, there was another one for you. Would you, and we've talked about this in previous webinars, would you say that blogging is still a good strategy? Is there a sort of ROI number for just blogging in general? That came up twice as well.
Blogging is one of the most popular pages, or blog pages are some of the most popular pages to a website. You gotta blog if you want to do well in the world of SEO. There is a huge ROI to it for businesses that know how to do it right. And I'm gonna caveat that because most people look at it like, I got all this blog traffic and my revenue didn't go up. Yeah, because it's like neilpatel.com. We're owned by, that website, even though it's my name, is owned by the ad agency NP Digital. We sell marketing services. Our most popular articles used to be on things like Discord or how to get more Instagram followers. So much traffic from how to get Instagram followers drives zero revenue. But on the flip side, revenue from things like how to translate your blog into multiple languages and how to structure, these weren't the exact keyword, but how to structure your blog. Should it be a subdomain or a subdirectory if you're in multiple languages? I believe that's an article that causes to land Adobe. Now, when you look at that, so they spent millions of dollars with us, right? That article does not get much traffic, but it's for the right audience. And that's why I wanted to caveat it is people optimize for traffic with SEO instead of optimizing for revenue. You got to really focus on your ideal customer profile and create content for them. And that's how you do well with SEO combined with leveraging CRO. Because if in our blog articles, Adobe just reads it and it just breaks it down, but there's no call to action that we have an agency like NP Digital or collecting leads, we wouldn't have got them as a customer. So not only do you have to create the right type of content for your audience, you need to do conversion optimization on your blog so that way you can funnel people who are reading to become a customer if you're selling a product or a lead. And number one and number two are the biggest mistakes on why companies don't generate an ROI from their blog. If they do it right, SEO crushes it. Look at our business.
Thank you so much for that. Scott's our technical guru. So there were several questions about schema. What the heck is schema? What are some best practices? What does implementing those best practices do? Maybe for voice search and some of the other things. So Scott, can you just give us a quick crash course on what schema is and why it's so important?
Yeah, so schema is essentially a code snippet that is placed on the website that helps define some sort of characteristic of the page, whether it's the reviews on the page or whether it's the author of the article. These are essentially entities on a page that Google can understand in a structured way and then display them in search results. So if you have reviews on your page, for example, and you don't see any reviews in the actual search result for that page, it is missing the opportunity to place a schema snippet to highlight that. So in rudimentary terms, it's a small snippet of code that highlights a component of the page so it can enrich the search results. This plays, I think, the biggest role for brands like e-commerce, for, let's say, not so much business to business focus, but where there are product pages, where there's imagery, if you're a local business, all of these schema types help boost your visibility on the SERP and help content get better understood by search engines. There's an extensive amount of resources in Google's developer forums on this, and there are also several tools online that can use to generate these snippets for you without having to understand any code. So recommend that you try and test some of those out.
Yeah, and oftentimes helps with things like voice search as well.
It can.
Neil, we got one for you. This one, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but what is your vision for ChatGPT or SearchGPT replacing Google, both short and long term? Any crystal ball stuff for 2025 and beyond?
I don't see them replacing Google. I see it the same way as the social web, in which people use multiple platforms, and that's the data we're already seeing. We're also seeing a huge trend. A lot of people use ChatGPT, including me and my podcast co-host Eric Soon. We were talking the other day, and now for a lot of basic stuff, we don't go to ChatGPT. We just type it into Google because we're used to getting the response now from Google, and their AI overviews are drastically improving. When you talk to the older audience, when we talk about AI to them and when we talk to them in person and survey them, we notice that their patterns, they think like what you get in Google through the AI overviews. A lot of people, believe it or not, that are like 60, 70 years old, they have a ton of spending power. Remember, they bought their homes for pennies on the dollar. They believe ChatGPT is the answer that Google gave you in the AI overviews.
Crazy town. Why we're on the podcast topic, here's a question for you, Neil, and Scott and Rob, you may chime in here because maybe schema has something to do with this one as well. But how do podcasts apply to voice search, conversational search? Is that a schema and a transcript thing? Like if you've got podcasts and that's a strategy for 2025, like how do you get the most out of the podcasts? Are they showing up in the SERPs, conversational search, et cetera, et cetera? Any thoughts or tips about podcasts?
Rob or Scott, you may know better than me. From my understanding, they just crawl and they're able to dissect the audio and know what it is, just like YouTube knows what you're talking about in a video. But I don't know exactly how they do it, but Rob or Scott, you guys probably have a much better answer than I do.
Yes, I think it'll depend, based on the platform, right? If you want it to be visible everywhere, I think having a transcription is nice. I also think specifically for Google search, if you're able to annotate the video as to which points and what topics are discussed at which anchors, then that actually can show in search results when a specific query is asked. So those markers, if you see on YouTube, for example, are a great way to sort of index the topics of said podcast and then provide a transcription off the back of that.
Awesome. So we got time for one more real quick for Rob and Scott. We talked quite a bit about authority and link building, brand authority. Question twice. How do you improve or increase brand authority? What are like the 2 or 3 most critical, most impactful strategies or tactics that businesses can take to increase brand authority?
Yeah, you want to increase your backlink authority as, item number one, and that can be done via a variety of different ways, right? Producing some sort of study or data-driven asset, right, that allows you to acquire backlinks from high authority places. Getting your site listed on certain directories and other places like that. That's going to be super valuable and important. But then also, more offsite stuff, right? Your reviews, your reputation, all those are super important in terms of increasing your brand authority, right? Like, yes, you can get backlinks. Yes, you can have a high domain authority. But if people go out and search your brand and they see that you have bad reviews, no one really likes you, your shipping costs too much, all that stuff, it's going to hurt your brand as well. So I would say those are probably the 2 biggest things that you want to make sure going after is your online reputation and then the website authority that you have.
As much as things have changed over the years, some stuff just stays the same. That's all we've got time for. The replay will be sent out.
And
Go ahead,
thank you
Neil,
guys
sorry.
very much. You guys can you'll get links for the replay, or you can just go to LinkedIn and YouTube, and it's on there
Yep.
too, on X as well. If you need help with your marketing, check us out at npdigital.com. Scott, Rob, Colin, appreciate the time, as well as everyone in the back office who's making the webinar happen on time, and appreciate all of you guys attending. I know it's a new year. Let's start this year off, whether you work with us or not. Let's just make sure you guys get amazing results, and I wish you guys the best for 2025, not just to you, but to your families as well. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye
everyone.
all.
Everyone,
Thank you.
bye.